Where are your glasses?
Okay. The sight.
Did you ever find that? Did you get that back from that woman?
I don't know where the woman
Is
is.
it a lost cause?
I think so.
I think she's a lost cause.
Which is okay. Better late than never. Okay. Tonight's discussion is about discipline.
Oh boy, I love this one.
About discipline, because discipline is one of the keys to success. If a person can't control themselves, obviously they cannot achieve different things. If a person really wants to achieve things, has to sacrifice other things which are not as important. To be able to sacrifice things which are not so important, a person requires discipline. Let me give you an example. We're all here tonight, there may be a Knicks game on the TV. So we had to have the discipline to stop watching something to be able to be here. So also, with any purposeful thing in life, we all need discipline to be able to avoid things which we may want to do more, which may be more appealing, in order to do things which are more worthwhile. And this applies especially to children. We have to inculcate this trait, as we were mentioning before, in the child, to know that even though you want to do these things, there is a thing called discipline, in order to divert your attention to something more purposeful. So that's where discipline is a key to enable us to reach the level of success, which involves getting onto more purposeful things.
Is discipline a form of self-love?
Discipline is a form of self-control, not self-love. Self-love is the opposite. Being undisciplined in order to use, to get the best for oneself, that is self-love. Discipline requires maturity to see beyond that. Right? So discipline is something for a higher purpose. Let me give you an example. Get up early in the morning requires great discipline. Self-love says stay in bed. I love myself. I'm tired. Stay in bed. So you have the two are usually at ends. They usually fight with each other, self-love and discipline. But a person who has reached a higher level will see that the discipline is good for oneself as well. So that's the trick which is involved to make discipline part of oneself. To teach oneself that I need the discipline because I love myself. In other words, I want to reach a higher level, and discipline is just a tool to reach the high level. So really there's two categories of self-love. The lower category of self-love, which is the fight with discipline, because if I love myself, I want to be undisciplined, I want to have freedom, I want to be able to do my own thing, I want to have my own space. That is the opposite of discipline. But a person who realizes the higher levels of self-love requires discipline. That's what Judaism teaches us. So there's two parts to self-love. The highest level.
Highest level.
But usually on a normal mundane level, if you tell someone discipline is self-love, they'll say you're crazy.
That's because I was thinking.
Right. But there are two different levels.
Self-love.
Right. So there are two different levels. And the ideal of Judaism is discipline which will reach us to the highest levels. That's the whole idea. The whole purpose of the Bible. You have so many commandments telling us do this, so many commandments telling us don't do this. 365 commandments telling us not to do this. Not one for each day, but every day. And there are 248 commandments telling us to do certain things. Why do we need so many rules and regulations? The answer is to teach us, to inculcate in us discipline. It's also a child. Let us compare two children. A child wakes up in the morning and he's hungry, just goes to the pantry, goes to the kitchen and takes out some food and eats it. A Jewish child is taught from a very early age, first go and wash your hands, brush your teeth, say your morning prayers, and then you can eat. Now which system teaches discipline? The Jewish system is teaching us discipline from a very early age. Now, how many times have I held my child? He's holding a cookie in his hand, he's ready to put it in his hand. Hold on, you forgot something. He said, what did I forget? A blessing. You forgot a blessing to God. That requires a great deal of discipline. And you're teaching a child at a very early age. You know, I just finished my food and I want to run. I've got to catch a bus. Wait, hold on one second. You've got to say Birkat Hamazon, which requires a good few minutes, right? A couple of minutes. Sada, again, teaches us discipline. I want to do certain things. I have other priorities. A person has to pray 3 times a day. How many times I go home at night and hey, wait a second, I didn't pray yet. I'm dead beat. I want to sleep. Can't sleep yet. Hold on, there are other priorities in life. Discipline is something which Judaism inculcates. Self-control and discipline are the keys to the higher level of self-love. Right? The lower levels of self-love, It's interesting. I remember when I was a kid, we had a headmistress. The Jewish school is a very Zionistic, modern Jewish school, which I went to as a very young child. And the headmistress was a fiery old woman. Very fiery old woman. I still remember her till the day. She was really fiery, and she started talking about freedom. The hippie movement just started in the 60s. Free love and free this and free that. So she was shouting at us. I was only 8 years old, I think it was. Didn't really understand what she was getting at. She says, people want freedom. Freedom from what? And freedom for what? What kind of freedom do they want? People want freedom. Everyone wants freedom. Freedom for what and freedom from what? And that's the question which too many people have misconstrued. We want freedom. Freedom to do what? Freedom to be bums on the street. That's what's happening today. They want freedom. Freedom from responsibilities. And that's what's ending up. That's where they ended up. That's where the whole generation ended up. So so when we talk about freedom, that's usually referred to as self-love. I love myself and therefore I want freedom for myself, which is the opposite of discipline. Most people think, what is the opposite of discipline? Discipline is a thing which takes me away from loving myself. I have to do this and I have to do that. I have to discipline myself. That's the opposite of loving oneself. The higher levels Judaism teaches us is, you really love yourself, you will discipline yourself. Thank you for that comment. So really clear that point up in terms of defining two different levels of self-love. The lower levels of self-love where we think, we're doing good for ourselves, we're really misguided. As King Solomon says, spare the rod and spoil the child. What does that mean? If you don't discipline the children at an early age, you spoil them.
Well, going back to that comment for one moment, we talked about this on other occasions, and I can equate the lower self-love is almost like an egotistical type thing, and the other type of love is it's a spiritual thing.
Right.
There's a big difference. One is one discipline is higher self-love.
Right. I was just writing a message for one of the bulletins.
Purpose, that's what it is.
I was just writing a letter for the bulletins, and there was a quote from the Book of Psalms. King David wrote the Book of Psalms, and he says he compares having children to a warrior having arrows. I mean, King David was a military genius, so he's bringing us a bit of his examples from his own background. He says, you know what children are compared to? Arrows. What's the comparison between children and arrows? And the answer is, the main thing when you shoot an arrow is the guiding it. The guidance is the main thing. Once you've shot the arrow, you lost control of it already. You can never take it back, you can't deflect it, it's done already. The deed is done already. He says the same thing with children. He says very powerful, an arrow is very powerful. Children are very powerful. The way you guide them, that's the way they're going to go. And once they've grown, you've lost control already. They're going to keep going, and you won't be able to do anything about it. So that's the comparison. So discipline we inculcate in children at a very early age is a tool which will stand for them for a lifetime. If they're not going to be able to control themselves at a very early age, they're not going to control themselves later. And that's a problem which we're facing today, a very big problem in terms of breakdown between parents and children and what's going on in society today. It's falling apart because there is no discipline at home. And, let me give an example. You go into nursery school today. What happens? The teacher asks the children, what would you like to do today, children? And this one says, I want to do this, and the other one says, I want to do that. Really, she's guiding them, but it appears as if there is no control. So children at a very early age are taught, we're the guys who are in control. There is no other control. We're the ones who decide. A guy comes home for dinner. The mother says, what can I make for you today, dear? When I went home for dinner in my time, eat this, and you will finish everything on your plate.
Yeah, that's true.
Sit
there until you finish.
There's a lovely story of a rabbi. It says he was a rabbi. He was growing up, and in those days, kids were sent away from home at a very early age to study in yeshiva. And when you studied in yeshiva, there was no dorms. You were put up by a certain family. So he said he was fortunate because he was put up by his aunt. He had an aunt in the city. He says he thanks his aunt till today that she gave him the same food to eat for 10 years. Because now he says everything tastes good. So in other words, discipline can make things look good. A person who's never been used to discipline can can never appreciate freedom. A person who's been used to discipline can appreciate a few minutes of freedom. So discipline is the key to everything. Discipline is the key to enjoying life. A person who's raised without discipline can never enjoy life. Because everything's been like this. So we have to appreciate, say, a guy who has a 9-to-5 job. So on Sundays he can relax, he can appreciate the freedom over here. He's had the discipline of 9 to 5. That is what really Shabbat is all about. Shabbat teaches us discipline another way. How do we enjoy ourselves? It's very interesting. Let's think about it. Compare the Jewish New Year to the non-Jewish New Year. Let's think of the secular New Year. What do people do? If they're reasonable, they'll drink and they'll have a gathering and they'll have some turkey and whatever it is and they'll watch the sports on the TV. If they're complete meshuggah, they'll go in the nude and jump into the river. What is it? Where is it? Where they jump? Okay, whatever it is. So that's how they enjoy their New Year. How do Jews enjoy their New Year?
They go to synagogue.
Is that enjoyment? It's discipline. It's discipline. What are we trying to teach people? How do you enjoy your day of relaxation? The way we enjoy our day of relaxation is by not doing all these things. You don't do the garden. You're not allowed to cut the grass. You're not allowed to watch the TV. You're not allowed to sew. What you're allowed to do. But that's the discipline which we're teaching you how to enjoy yourself, because people don't know how to enjoy themselves. Why? Why don't people know how to enjoy themselves? Because people think that enjoyment means getting a high. Right? We do certain things and we get a high out of it. The problem is, after every high there's a fall. And then we're looking for another high. And the problem is, once you've reached a certain high, that there's no high after that. Once you've climbed Mount Everest, where are you going to go next? So Judaism tells us the highs are inside. The highs are something which you feel inside. You don't need something external to give you a high. You have to give it yourself. You have to learn how to give yourself a high. And the biggest high you can get is a good feeling inside. That you've done something worthwhile and you've done something purposeful. Because we all need purpose in our lives. Right? So a person goes through life, and they have all these highs, but there was no purpose to it. You come out feeling the worst. It's the worst experience possible. I saw a good movie. For 3 hours I was mesmerized by the movie. I came out of the movie, it was a great movie. But now I feel a bit empty inside. Why? Because what was the purpose of it? The last 3 hours I got a good feeling. But then I'm left with a feeling that it wasn't purposeful. I had a good day playing golf. I played the whole day golf. I was enjoying myself. But then when I come home, it's sort of empty, because what was the purpose? What did I do? I kicked the ball around. Fine, I had a bit of relaxation. But what did I gain out of it? What did I do for the world? What have I done for other people in playing golf? So the highest level of feeling of satisfaction a person gets is a feeling that they've done good for other people. So it's a beautiful feeling. You go and visit a sick man, and you've raised their morale. Okay, may not be able to feel it, but the next guy who goes, I went just after Marty went to see someone. Someone had their leg cut off in the shul.
Oh.
Terrible thing, diabetes. So he was in his bed. I went to see him, and he was beaming. I said, "What happened today?" He said, 2 members of the shul came to visit me, and he was really thrilled. They made his day. He was so thrilled. That's a purpose. A person should feel, I did a great mitzvah today. I did a great deed today. I made someone else who's really down the dumps. Poor fellow, he went through this terrible operation, and here he's beaming now because I went to see him. So that's a good feeling a person should have. Those are the feelings that last. Those are the things that last. A person has a baby. What a feeling. How can you express that feeling? Holding a little baby in your hands. There's no greater feeling of power, as we've said before. There's no greater feeling of satisfaction. There's knowing, you brought a little life into this world. You're protecting it, you're guarding it. And there's no feeling of satisfaction. You see little children come home, and you see little faces. You can't explain that joy and that benefit. And that's a benefit which will last you, remember, all your life. The movie you may forget a few days later. The benefits of holding these little babies, you're going to remember all your life. So those are things which we learn through discipline. Because without discipline, no one's going to have a child. And that's the problem today. People don't want children. Why? Self-sacrifice. It requires a lot of sacrifice, which involves discipline. I don't want to get up 2 o'clock in the morning and change diapers, and it's going to mess up my day, and it's going to mess up my life, especially if I'm a woman. I have to stay at home for how many weeks or how many months, and who knows what's going to happen next. And then the man's going to work harder, who's going to provide for the family. It requires a lot of discipline to have children. But that is the way it's interesting. I was thinking about it with my wife one day. We're examining different schools for children. And I said to her, it's interesting, the ones which are more expensive are the ones I really want to send the kids to. It seems that the good things in life are the most costly. I mean, if you look at life in general, that is usually the case. The good things in life are the hardest things to attain. The bad things in life are very easy to attain. What does that tell us? It tells us that a function of growing spiritually is crossing these bridges. How do you get across these bridges? How do you break the barriers which are stopping us from moving? There's an interesting statement of the Talmud. The Talmud says when a good person dies, they'll see their evil inclination as a mountain. And they'll say, wow, how did I climb this mountain? It was so hard. How did I achieve what I did? When a bad person dies, they'll see the evil inclination like a hair. Say, what? I couldn't even break this hair? What's going on? What is the Talmud getting at? The Talmud seems to imply when doing good involves breaking a person's desires, involves a lot of discipline. Just keeping on going, chugging away every day, doing the same thing day in, day out, requires a lot of discipline, requires a lot of courage, requires a lot of fortitude. A person who's on a very low level has got very little thing stopping him. Okay, he's got to work on a little thing, on a minor area, to build himself up. A person on a high level has to keep all the areas now he's conquered. It's like, say, winning a territory. You have a bigger territory, you need a bigger army. You have a smaller territory, you need a smaller army. So that's what the Talmud is getting at. So the amount of discipline required to reach a higher level is much greater than the amount of discipline to reach a lower level. One's got to keep up the work. I'll give you an example, an A student. How much discipline does he require to keep up the A's? Okay, fine. I can get an A once in a while. The other guy's got a whole string of A's to keep up. That requires a great deal of effort. That requires a great deal of discipline. Let me give you an example. I've taught many children around here their bar mitzvahs. I've taught many children in Vancouver bar mitzvahs. The biggest problem, I myself learned from my bar mitzvah. You know how much trouble I gave my father? I mean, I'm just remembering, my father used to teach me bar mitzvah. He was a bar mitzvah teacher. He had to chase me around the house to catch me. I must have been the dumbest student around. Come here! I'm coming, no intention to come. Coming! Come, kind of grab me and take me and make me sit next to him. That was the warmest feeling I got, because my father taught me. He would sit next to him, put his arm around me. And that's probably where I get this yearning from, is only from the love he showed to me. But it requires a great deal of effort. Children don't have this discipline. We have to inculcate it. If my father wouldn't have sat next to me and would put his arm around me and taught me, who knows what I'd be doing now? Probably wouldn't be here today. But that's the idea of discipline which we have to teach our children, and which we have to learn for ourselves, because if we don't have it, how can we teach it? So let's discuss, there are some short sayings in Pirkei Avot, which the rabbis encapsulated truths which take people a lifetime to learn. And there are many truths which they talk about in one-liners, which would take people a lifetime to learn, and some people don't even get there after a lifetime. Because who is going to sit down today and really meditate? Who's going to sit down today and think about purpose in life? What makes people tick? What makes people go on? We're so caught up in the rat race. We get up, we have breakfast, and we have to leave already. We go to work. What are we doing at work? We're not thinking about important issues. We're thinking about mundane things, how to run the business, and what the boss wants me to do, and the pressures of work, and that's it. We come home, we're so exhausted, we just want to unwind. But when are we thinking about the purpose of life? How can we have Shabbat? Even Shabbat. We're too busy eating and drinking and sleeping and having a good time. When do we think about the purpose of life? So the rabbis wrote down the purpose of life for us. In a few short sayings, they encapsulated many truths. So one of the most beautiful sayings is attributed to a person called Ben Zoma. I'm sure you've heard this many times before. I'll just go into it a bit. Ben Zoma was one of the contemporaries of Rabbi Akiva. So he lived about 1800 years ago. He never reached the maturity to be called a rabbi. He was always called Ben Zoma, which is the son of Zoma. Zoma was the name of someone. He wasn't called Rabbi Zoma. Interesting, we don't even know his first name. He just called the son of Zoma. He was like, he was not important. He says one of the most important Mishnayot, which is really beautiful. And I'm sure you've heard this many times before, just bear with me. The first saying he says is, who is a wise man? A person who learns from everyone. Okay, that's a wise man, a person learning from everything around. The one I want to concentrate on is the second saying. Who is a mighty person? Who is a mighty person?
One who conquers himself.
Right. One who can control themselves. A person who can control themselves is considered mighty. King Solomon says it in one line as well. He says, greater is a person who can control himself than a person who can capture a city. A whole city of people. You can capture a whole city of people. But what's easy? You can't control yourself. So it's easier to capture other people and debase other people and control other people than control oneself. Okay? There's thousands of people. You be the President of the United States. What's easy? You can't control yourself. That's one of the desires, you have passion and whatever desires, and a person can't control themselves. What's easy? You can be the greatest person. We find this with King David. Right? King David, here he was, king of Israel, the mighty warrior. And he sees Bathsheba from the roof of his palace. He sees this beautiful woman bathing in her backyard. And he wants to take her. Can't control his own desires. So fortunately for us, he admitted, he was wrong, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. He was very, very contrite. That also requires great control. We're all faced with situations in life which require sometimes lowering our ego. That's really the hardest thing to do. There are certain situations which involve other people. Usually there's friction between people. And to make up, it has to be give and take. Involving giving, how do you give to another person? You lower your own ego. I want less, I demand less. I can give a bit more. That requires a great deal of self-control. That's an issue which requires, making people come back together again after a fight. Requires one of them giving in, if not both of them. And that requires usually lessening one's ego, because most fights come because of ego, because of problems with ego. And, as a rabbi, I've dealt with people in the community, and that involves, usually sacrifice, either on my part or their part, usually on my part. I'll give in sometimes. Why? What for? Why do you want to make a big fight? For what? For a small issue. So a person's going to realize, okay, I'm the rabbi, I'm the leader of the community. So big deal. Sometimes you have to give in. And that's important. That's an important thing for a person to realize. What is holding me back from giving in? Is it just my ego? If it's just my ego, that's a very bad thing. That requires control to be able to break that bad characteristic of a person. If it's not the ego, it's good intentions and it's a very great benefit which is going to come out of it, stick to your guns. It was just ego. Let me give you an example. Rabin. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. Imagine what he had to go through to shake hands with this guy. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if I could do it myself. And to lower yourself to such a level, I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just saying in terms of ego, you really have to lower the ego, no question about it. Here he is, the conqueror of how many wars he fought through since 48. He's been fighting wars, he's been winning all the battles. Here he's got to debase himself to shake hands with this murderer. I don't know how he did it. I'll just give an example. It's a very drastic, I think it's a radical example of how a person has to lower egos to make peace. That's a radical example. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But that is what he says. He says, who is a great person? Who is a mighty person? Might is controlling oneself. That's the hardest thing to do. We all have passions, we all have desires, we all have lusts, and how do we control them? That is let me give you a small example. A guy's full, and he ate a lot and he's full, and then he sees something nice to eat. Who's going to resist? There's an interesting story in the Talmud. Talmud says one man went to the house of the head of the exile. In Babylon, when the Jews were thrown out to Babylon, they had a prince who represented all the Jews. He was given a position by the government, the head of the exile, like the head of the Jewish agency or whatever the correspondence would be today, outside, the head of the federation. So here he was, he went to this house of this head of the exile. It says he had 12 different courses of different foods. So he's telling us he had one course, he's so full. And then there was dessert. But he ate all the dessert. So Thomas says, how could he eat all the dessert? He had 12 courses of food. So the person always has room in their stomach for something sweet. This is a Talmud 2,000 years. What does that mean? We can't control ourselves. When we see something which we really like, even though a person's really stuffed, that involves a lot of self-control. One of the great Musa authorities, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who lived in Italy, 1700s, he said, that's a bigger test than a fast. If you can stop eating when you're full, so that's greater than fasting. Why? Because it involves much more self-control. A person's fasting, he's not eating anything. Okay, I'm not eating anything. Today's a fast. Yom Kippur, I'm not going to eat anything. But if you're eating already and you just have to stop eating a bit more, that requires much more self-control. He said that's greater than a fast. You've controlled yourself much more than a fast. So a person who fasts, normally what we do, we fast. What we're looking forward to, we're going to break our fast, we're going to have gorge ourselves afterwards. What's the use of the fast, he says? You didn't break your self-control. You didn't control yourself. Because afterwards, everything comes out. Everything's let loose. So it's much greater, the self-control is greater on a small basis. Self-control is measured in small things, not big things. If you can't control yourself in small things, it's highly unusual a person can control themselves in big things. Let me give you a small example from Jewish law. You know, one of the hardest laws in Jewish law is marital laws. The 2 weeks in the month, they have to separate. 2 weeks in a month, can you imagine? Husband and wife, you're married, everything's kosher. It's not like she's a different woman, it's like she's not committing adultery. I'm living in the same house. I can't touch her for 2 weeks out of the month. You know how hard that is? It's murder, it's torture. You're sleeping in the same room with a woman you're married to legally. You can't touch her, she can't touch you for 2 weeks in a month. It's a crazy system. What is it trying to inculcate in a person? Imagine, I can't touch my wife. How can I touch other women? 2 weeks in a month. I mean, that's the kind of discipline it's inculcating into us. Imagine Jews for thousands of... Yes?
You made a statement that you said it's if you can't control the little things, you can't control the big things. I subscribe to the opposite. I feel that most people can control the big things, but can't control the little things.
Okay. What I want to say is, I can control big things because I'm afraid of the outcome.
The outcome.
Well, that's all. That's the only deterrent.
Yeah, but the little things...
Little thing, there's no outcome, so I'm not scared.
Really,
but supposing there was no outcome from a big thing, how would I control it? That's my point. My point is, if I have an opportunity to do a big thing, with no outcome, maybe I do it. There's no deterrent. But if I can control myself on small things, you bet your life I can control myself on the big things as well.
Oh, sure.
That's what I'm saying. So that's the problem. Today's society is based on deterrent. Unfortunately, police cannot be everywhere. You know, I had this last was it Monday? I had a court case. You know, they gave me a parking ticket for parking. It was a day of snow. Over here, Highland Park, they love giving tickets. So I was parked over here in the snow, and I get a ticket, parked close to the crosswalk. I couldn't see a crosswalk. There was 1 foot of snow. There's no crosswalk. So I said, look, to hell with it. I'm not going to pay it. I'm going to fight it. So I go to court last, Monday night, go to court. 7 o'clock was a court. So everyone files. There's 300 people over there in the courtroom. They all had court cases the same night. I've never seen this in my life. Highland Park Municipal Court. 300 people. What they try and do is they make it so hard for you that you'll pay the ticket anyway. So what happened? Let me tell you the story. It's a very interesting story. So I'm there, 7 o'clock. People are filing. What's going on? 300 people filing. The court is packed. 7:15, Your Honor walks in. His Honor, the judge, walks in, and he starts calling names. Tell me if you're guilty or not guilty. So luckily, my name is at the beginning of the alphabet. So, Basuz, not guilty. So he carries on down the list. Now he's going on and on. He's good till he gets to the Z. He doesn't examine the case. He just keeps going. So I'm sitting over there. What is it? I go to class at 8:30. So I'm sitting over there, 7:30. He's done the S's already. 8 o'clock. Now he's going to people who never showed up in court before. So he's telling them, why didn't you show up? Are you paying the fine? He's going to big discussions now. There's a lawyer over there. That's what's going on. So it's already 8:15. So I said, I better do something. So you're not allowed to talk in the courtroom. So I had to go outside, and there's a policeman over there. I said, look, I have a class at 8. I'm a local rabbi. I have to give a class at 8:30. I can't hang around over here. I said, look, there's nothing I can do. Maybe speak to the prosecutor. So the prosecutor's over there.
Because he didn't put it to jail.
I'll tell you. So I spoke to the prosecutor, beautiful guy. I said, I'm a local rabbi. Excuse me. Keep that. Oh, okay, yes. Beard. Looks like it. Local rabbi, I want to give a class. I've got to go. It's 8:30. I really have to go. Please help me, get out of here. I don't mind. I'll pay the fine. I'll do anything. Just get me out of here. Because now if you leave the court in the middle of the court case, it's contempt of court. They can fine you. So please, He says, okay. He looks at my ticket, parked in the snow, scratches his head. He says, don't worry. Give me 5 minutes more. I go in back inside him. He goes to the judge in the middle of everything. He says, I'm going to dismiss this case. The guy is parked in the snow, and there's a dispute where the boundaries of the street were. So, thank God, I said, Baruch Hashem. But can you imagine, what are they trying to teach you? Where is the discipline over here? Because the whole law is based on deterrent, and only when the police see you is there a deterrent. If the police don't see you, there's no deterrent. I myself, there's no policeman around. What are you going to do? There's no deterrent. There's no self-control. What's going to control? That's the problem with society today. We're not teaching people self-control. We leave it all to deterrence. There's no deterrent, there's nothing. How do you teach self-control? And the schools have to do this. This has to be inculcating children from very young. The homes, who's at home? The babysitter. Who's the babysitter? The TV. The latchkey kids that come home and they've got a string with a key on it. They walk in, 2:30. Imagine letting kids out of school at 2:30. I've never seen anything like it. In England it's 4 o'clock. In Canada it's 4 o'clock. Why is it 2:30? Why is school over so early? 2:30 they come home. Who's at home? Everyone's at work, 2:30. They should make school different hours. Why start so early? Start 1 hour later and finish 1 hour later or 2 hours later. They should have a long day for school, not a short day. This short day business is garbage. Well, they go home. Well, they mess around. Put TV on. What do you see on TV? You see the worst things on TV. You're seeing people with no self-control on TV. This one's sleeping with this one's on with this one's wife, and they're having General Hospital. What's it called? I don't know. What's it called? These soap operas around that time when the kids. They couldn't find the guy for 6 years, and he comes back to court now to pay his fine. And then he comes back, he owes a fine of $500, and the judge tells him, "When are you going to pay this?" He says, "Well, I'm unemployed, I can't afford it, I'll pay you $20 a month." So the judge says, "Oh, fine, okay, $20 a month. What's the alternative? Put the guy in jail. Who's going to pay for it? He's supposed to get $20 a month and nothing, but he's not going to pay anything in the end. He's just going to drag it on, not going to pay anything. What are they going to do? He's going to put him in jail? He has nothing to lose. There's no deterrence over here. They have nothing to lose, these people. They're on the streets anyway, they have nothing to lose. Put them in jail.
Just to get an aside, what did you think of the caning of that American boy last week?
Again, it's a deterrent. So there's no one around to catch him. Again, it's a deterrent. It's a good deterrent. Better than putting him in jail. It's a very good deterrent. It may be a very cruel deterrent, but it's a deterrent. Deterrents don't work, that's what I'm saying. Because again, you need police around to catch the guy, to put him in jail, or get him the lashes, or whatever it is. Deterrents don't work because policemen cannot be everywhere. We need a society. That's what Abraham Avinu, our forefather, he goes to the Philistine country because there's a famine in Israel. And he tells his wife, "Tell everyone you're my sister. Don't tell them you're my wife." So king, his messengers come around. "Who is this beautiful woman?" "It's my sister." They ask her, "Who are you?" I'm his brother." They take her to the king's palace. So that night God comes to the king. "Don't touch this woman. Be careful." He said, "What happened?" He said, "It's Abraham's wife." "But he said it's his sister." So he gets up the next morning, mad. Who's he mad with? Abraham. He said, "Abraham, you told me a lie. Why do you say this is your sister? It's your wife. Why do you say it? Why do you cause me to sin? I took your wife away from you. I'm very sorry, but why? It's your fault." Abraham says, "You know why?" He says, "There's no fear of God in this place, and I'm scared. There's no deterrent. There's no fear of God. Man can do whatever they want." Because what's the highest deterrent, which is everywhere? Because God is everywhere. There's no fear of God. Then there's no policeman. He's the king. He's the head of the police force. He can do whatever he wants. In those days, kings were above the law.
So what you're really saying is if you follow your line of reasoning, that discipline itself is a self-deterrent because it's kind of
Definitely.
submitting your will to God. So
Right.
Therefore, that becomes the greatest deterrent.
That's the greatest
and
thing.
that becomes a real sense of self-control.
Right.
And that's what I think you're trying to
Definitely.
bring across.
Right. So discipline, which is based on the idea of God, is the highest form of self-control. So now, I'm not going to rob a bank. Why am I not going to rob a bank? Not because there's policemen around, not because of the jail sentence. I don't care about those things. I'm not going to rob a bank because God says it's not ethical. If I see a person on the street who's in dire need of help, am I going to stop or not? God says, "Don't stand by your neighbor's blood." I have to help. So if I'm going to base myself on a law which is given by the ultimate being, and I have the self-discipline to carry that out, I'm on a different level already. I don't need policemen around. You know, the best society, Israel is meant to be a light to the nations. How is Israel meant to be a light to the nations? We have to create a model society in Israel. How do you create a model society? A model society is where people can walk the streets at 12 p.m. or 1 a.m. and not be worried. A model society is a place where the police don't have any crime to worry about. That's the model society which we have to create, which unfortunately, because of Western adoption of Western standards, is not being created. That's the model society we have to create. That's what Judaism is all about. Self-control which will lead us to a model society. Because if we have this discipline, and we're keeping to a higher standard of law, because of this discipline, you won't need any police. The judges will have a break. They won't need any to do anything.
It's interesting. The English, the only police force
Without guns.
Without
They still have no guns,
Right.
and they're suffering from it.
Now they are.
But don't forget, you can't buy guns in England. It's very hard. It's very hard to get a license. There's no such thing as you can buy in a street corner. You got to. In my life in England, I never saw a gun shop. I didn't know there were such things as gun shops. You can't buy guns in England. Unless you're one of the royal family, you can hunt the animals or whatever it is. You can't buy it. The guns are unheard of. Who has guns in England? I mean, the robbers who smuggle it in. This is a crazy society we're living. We're living in the Wild West. This is the Wild West. This whole country is the Wild West. You can buy an Uzi in the store. They're just trying to change that now. So what? So you buy a gun. So everyone has a gun now. So what does that do? That increases the likelihood of people being shot and killed. The statistics are mind-boggling over here. How many people get killed every year? And terrible. Okay,
So
but
you're
that all
saying-
involves self-control. Yes.
So you're saying too much freedom is primitiveness, and discipline is what keeps civilization?
Right.
That's what you're really
Right.
saying.
Civilization is based on discipline. Civilization is based on discipline. The roots, the core of civilization is discipline. Once there is no discipline, everything falls apart. And that's what's happening, unfortunately. That is something which Congress has not realized. Congress, Bush used to talk about it. Family values. He didn't say explicitly where he went. What he needs is a revamping of the school system and a revamping of the morals on TV, and you'll see how society is going to change, and there won't be so many crimes. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Those are the cures. Two main cures. Instead of putting more policemen on the street, what you do is you change how people think.
Put less policemen on the street?
Not right now. First, you change how they behave, and then you'll need less policemen.
And what's the second part?
You'll revamp education and revamp TV. Two things. Those are the two things. Those are core.
It's a freedom of expression.
Freedom of expression for what?
That's the
How
the
far can you
obstacle.
go in that freedom of expression? How far do you go in terms of ruining a child's life by being free to express whatever you want?
I have a very strong feeling that too much freedom is no freedom at all.
Right, that's what we're just
I
saying.
think that's the whole key.
That's
here.
all okay.
Because if you have something in scarcity, you appreciate it
Right.
because it has value.
Right.
But if you have something that you have tons of, you kind of.
But how do you appreciate freedom? By having discipline. And unfortunately, the schools are not providing discipline, and the TV is not educating us to be disciplined. So those are two things which, if I were president, if I was in charge of Congress, I'd try and pass these two things. Revamp the school system. Obviously, we're failing miserably. And number two is revamp TV. The things they show on TV are disgusting, and there should be guidelines of what can be shown and cannot be shown. This also applies in the theaters. What is an R rating? The R rating is anyone over 17 has got to be accompanied by an adult. What difference whether they're accompanied by an adult or not?
That's true.
They shouldn't be allowed in. Accompanied by an adult. What's accompanied by an adult? So that's when morality falls. Unfortunately, everything else falls with it, and that's what happened after the 50s. Morality started being on a steady decline, and you can see before you could leave your doors wide open at night, go to sleep, and nothing would happen. Today, who's going to leave their doors open at night? Just think back. I wasn't around at that time. What I can remember is when I was a kid growing up in England in the 60s, and then when I was a kid growing up in England in the 80s, you couldn't recognize the place. It was gone to the dogs. You go back there now, it's gone to the dogs. It's like the Bronx, when the Jews were living in the Bronx. You go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, nothing happened. You try and go out now at 6 o'clock in the morning, or 12 o'clock in the day. It's tough. That's what happens. Self-control. Those self-control, we're animals already. We go by instinct. I want this, I'll get it. I don't care how. Instincts take over. So discipline is the difference between a man and an animal. What is the difference between a man and an animal? Self-discipline, self-control. Animals do whatever they think is right. By instinct, whatever they want, they do. Human beings have to have the control to be able to say, no, I want it, I can wait. How do you teach the children? By telling them. You want to eat? Wait. You're hungry in the morning? Wait. You want to eat food? This is your dinner. You shouldn't just ask a child, you want to eat this? No. Make them eat it. Why? You teach them self-control. They're forced to eat things they don't like. So, I can't have whatever I like. If you spoil the kid when he's a kid, what's he going to grow up as into an adult? I want this. I don't like this. Then he gets married. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like the way you make the bed in the morning. What's going to happen over here? Everything's going to fall apart. It's all going to be what I like. The kid doesn't know how to give in. Some things I don't like, I have to bear. Kids not taught that today, unfortunately. So that's it. I had a case over here where a child, she's 8 years old, she stopped coming to Hebrew school. I called out the mother. Why? What happened to your daughter? We enjoyed having her. Why? How come she stopped coming to our Hebrew school? She was learning so well and she was doing so well. I says, well, Rabbi, she didn't want to go. She's only 8 years old. She already decided. I don't want to go. I said, you don't go? I'll go. I'll force you. 8 years old. You're a big girl already. You can make up your own mind. So that's how we're going to raise our children. We're finished. Because what's going to happen when we tell them to do something which we think is right for them, they're going to say, no, you told me I don't have to do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I'm just going to do it. That's what I'm going to do from now on. To hell with you and to hell with everything you say. I don't care. And that's what happens today, unfortunately. Marriages break down, families break down because there is no idea of discipline. You don't teach a child from day one. These are the rules. This you can do, this you can't do. There are no rules. There are no rules, I can do whatever I want. Society does not teach a child from day one. This you can do, this you can't do. There are no rules anymore. Finish. I was amazed how many people said guilty with pride. Guilty! Now do. What are you going to do about it? We'll fine you, we'll put you in jail for a few days. What's going to happen? Guilty. Okay. Now there are two different levels of self-control. One level of self-control applies to mankind as a whole. The other level of self-control is on a high level. It's limited to rational beings who are adherents to the Torah. So definitely, being a Jew involves a high level of self-control. We have hundreds of laws to keep. How much self-control does that require? Just take the dietary laws, how much self-control? I'm hungry. I'm out of town. Forget about Highland Park. I'm out of town. What do I do? Like go into McDonald's or Burger King or this and that, even though Burger King is Jewish. Where did I go?
Go buy a napkin.
That takes self-control. That's hard to say.
For water.
It's very tough. So we're fortunate. We're living in America. You go to the supermarket, you can get things with OK or U. We're very fortunate over here. You go to Canada. Go to Vancouver and see what you're going to do over there.
Why is it a big problem, sir?
Where's kashrut over there? There's no OU in Canada.
There isn't any kashrut over there?
It's very little. You have to really go and look for it. You can't. There's one kosher store, which is one-stop shopping, because that has that's the only place you can find kosher food. Okay, so that's so a person has to practice self-control. So that's specific self-control which applies to Jews is on a much higher level than worldly self-control. What does a non-Jew have to do? I was thinking, how easy it is to be a non-Jew.
Oh God.
So easy. Why is it so easy? I wake up in the morning, what do I do? I'll watch the TV, I'll have my breakfast, then I'll go to work, I go to work, I'll flirt with this one, flirt with that one, tell this lie, tell that lie, make the story, go for a drink. Al, come here, we're talking about, come on.
2 hour
You'll enjoy this talk. So come home, have a booze, whatever, I don't know. I'll go out with this one, go out with that one, have a good time. But here I'm Jewish. What do I have to do? Make this blessing, make that blessing, keep my head covered, and go to pray here, go to pray there, wake up early in the morning, go to synagogue. It's a hassle. Tie myself up with these leather straps. What's going on over here?
Oh God.
But on the other hand, who has more discipline? Who can control their lives on a higher level? There's no question about it. Just think about the marital laws. Who is holier? Which level is holy? Which one is more distinct from an animal? I'll tell you, the Jewish system is much holier because we're much more distinct from an animal. We have many more things which keep us away from our instincts. And that's how we define holiness. Holiness is, the further away we are from our base instincts, the holier we are. I want to say a bad word. I can't say it. I just can't bring myself to use a four-letter word. Why? Because I'm debasing myself. Why would I want to debase myself? It's interesting. When I was a kid growing up in school, I used to hear these words. So I'll never forget this, because this is the right way to educate children. So one day I said that one of the four-letter words, and my cousin was there. And my cousin says, why do you want to debase yourself by ruining your mouth? God created a mouth. Why did God create the mouth of a human being? To praise God, sing God's praises. By using these words, we're debasing it. We're using it for bad purposes. The mouth is a tool which God gave to us, which we have to appreciate. So instead of uttering, good words, nice words, kind words, loving words, we're debasing, we're lowering ourselves. What for? Use these disgusting language. That's one thing a Jew's got to do. That involves self-control. I'm so disappointed with someone. I'm so disgusted with someone. I want to use bad language. Where's it going to get me? It's not going to get me anywhere. It's going to get me to dig my own hole. Why? Because I'm going to debase myself by using it. Same thing in terms of temper. I'm going to lose my temper now with someone. Where's it going to get me? I've dug my own hole. So I'm going to feel rotten afterwards. I'm going to ruin my state of mind afterwards. My desires. Okay, I fancy this woman. What I'm going to do? I'm going to do now. I'm going to regret that the rest of my life. Why do? I'm going to dig my own hole. So again, a person has self-control. They're appreciating. I'm in control now of the situation. All these things which debase me, I can cut off. I can say no. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to debase myself. I'm on a higher level now. I'm on a holy level now. I'm separating myself from my instincts, which is the key to holiness. And then a person will say, look, later on, after 120 years, we'll go there, we'll see, this is the mountain you conquered. Because every step which you control yourself, you climbed another rung in the ladder, leading up to the divine, leading up to the holy. So let's talk a bit about general self-control, which we said is the self-control which every single human being has to have. So self-control, which is practiced in improving our physical condition and keeping our secular affairs in order. Let me give you an example. This is self-control which every human being must learn. Number one, don't overdraw in the bank. That's the first lesson we all get when the checks start bouncing. Right? Self-control. Don't overdraw. Number two, don't overindulge in food. Why? You get fat. And today people know it's very unhealthy to get fat. Obey the laws of the country. Why? You have to obey the laws, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. Adhere to medications or treatments prescribed by doctors. That involves self-control. Person has diabetes. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. Sugar, you can't eat this. Person has other problems. You can't do this, you can't do that. Self-control. Let me give you another example. Who is the biggest doctor you know? Who is? Huh? Not in that sense. Who is the biggest doctor you know? God. God is the biggest doctor we know. Why? God created us. God designed us. Right? If you have a problem, who do you go to? Do you go to the mechanic or do you go to the designer? If you have the designer of the instrument over there, you go straight to the designer and say, hey, your design is not working. Or you go to the mechanic who can fix it. I go straight to the source. God is the designer of this equipment. He tells us how to operate this equipment. If you follow these laws, he says, I promise you, I guarantee you life. If you don't follow these laws, I can't guarantee you life. Who are we going to listen to? We have to have the self-control to follow the doctor's prescriptions. All these things God gives us are prescriptions for life. These are prescriptions to better our lives, not to make our lives worse. It's interesting. There's a story in the Torah about Jacob and his wives. What happened? Jacob was working for his father-in-law, whose name was Lavan, which means white. Mr. White, whose name even was a trick. He was a con man, he was Mr. Black. His name was White. What happened? He was working for Mr. White, who tricked him at every opportunity. He tricked him, he changed his wages, he changed his wife, he was meant to give him this sister, he gave him the other sister. He tricked him at every single opportunity. And God comes to Jacob and says, Jacob, leave your father-in-law's house and go back home. So Jacob goes to his wives, who are the daughters of Lavan. His father-in-law was tricking him all the time. He says, you know what? What should I do? God appeared to me last night and says to leave. But what should I do? I'm asking your advice. So tell him, we didn't get anything from our father. Our father treated us as maidservants. He made you work for us. Well, he's selling us. He's selling us to you. He gave us nothing. Let's leave him. It's good for us to leave. So commentaries ask, the obvious question is, God told him to leave. Why does he have to go and ask his wives for advice?
Peace for shalom bayis.
Okay, that's the simplest answer. Simplest answer is peace between man and wife. You have to give your wife the opportunity to express her views. And he told them, God, but the question is, why didn't they say, look, God says it, let's go? They should have said that. So why did they say, they tricked us? So the commentary says a very interesting thing. It says they realized that whatever God says, there's a silver lining to it. They didn't want to leave their fathers. They said, you know what? Let's look at the other side. Why does God want us to live? There has to be a purpose in it. In other words, whatever God tells us to do, we can't understand it. We have to realize there is a good in it for us. There is some benefit which comes from us. Even if the only benefit is that we'll learn self-control. That is a very high benefit already. Okay? So take a mitzvah which has no apparent benefit. Okay? What does it involve? It involves doing something which requires discipline and self-control. So just the idea of that self-control is the benefit in itself. So I'm learning how to control myself, which is an amazing benefit. You know, in the army, if you go to the army, can you imagine an army with no discipline? What would happen to that army? It would fall apart in no time at all. That's why it's very strict in the army. You do this, you'll be court-martialed. In those days, they could shoot someone at the front. If you could be court-martialed in those days, you could be shot. Why? Because if discipline falls apart, you're finished. So also in terms of our lives. If discipline in our lives falls apart, we're finished. You know, I had a bus driver when I was going to school in England. I was a kid in school. We had to commute 8 miles to go to a Jewish school. 8 miles every morning, 8 miles back. So the bus driver suddenly, we had another bus driver. For 2 years we had another bus driver. So this guy was a clean-cut guy, very handsome guy. Disappeared for 2 years. What happened to him? He comes back 2 years later, long ponytail, and puffy eyes like this. You know, where have you been? So he got on drugs. He was lost for 2 years. 2 years of his life were lost. He was just trying to get back on course now. He had everything going for him. What happened? No self-control. Couldn't control himself. Peer pressure, whatever it was, couldn't control himself. If we're all here now, we have to be thankful because we have the self-control to be here now. And what about the guys who are not here? Where's their self-control? They have other priorities in life. They can't control themselves. We're all the Jews for centuries who are not around anymore. The 250 million Jews which should be in the world today, where are they today? They didn't have the self-control. They couldn't keep it. They didn't have the discipline to stay alive today. They didn't have the discipline to carry on the traditions. They couldn't inculcate the discipline to their children. So this general self-control, as we mentioned, which is normal daily actions of a human being, eating well, sleeping well, taking the right medications, not overdrawing fiscal responsibility, not getting into trouble, those are all general self-controls, which every single human being needs. And then there are a high-level self-control which Jews need to keep the Torah. Because that is the biggest key. To keep the Torah requires great self-control. And how do you do it? You start gradually. First you control this aspect, you control that aspect, you control that. We control everything. We control what we eat. We control what we touch. We control what we see. There's certain things we're not allowed to see. Pornographic movies, Jews are not allowed to see. To read Playboy magazine is not allowed for a Jew to see. We're not allowed to see these things. Why? Control your vision. We're not allowed to hear certain things. Speech, gossip. I'm going to close our ears. I don't want to hear that. That's bad speech. You're talking bad about someone. I don't want to hear that. Hardest things to do are these daily mundane things, because they crop up every single minute of the day. I'm walking down the street. There's pretty girls in front of me with a short mini skirt. What can I do? So you have reactions. You have the quickest reactions in the human body. So what I do is I take off my glasses. I can't see very well without them. It's very useful to be short-sighted, I tell you. It's very useful to be short-sighted. You know, sometimes you see me with putting on my glasses. Sometimes you see me, here I can see perfectly. It's just a blur. I can't see anything. Al, you put yours on, right? So that requires great self-control. That's the hardest aspect of self-control. Hearing. What do you hear? You know, Talmud says, there's a bit of extra over here. First says, the eyelids, the quickest reaction in man is to stop seeing things which are bad. You know, Talmud says you're not even allowed to watch animals when they're making love. Not even animals making love. How much more so humans making love? This is the basic. You have prostitution on screen. Imagine, just think of it. These people are being paid to be prostitutes on screen. We don't think about it. They're actresses, they're actors, they're given the highest status. What are they? They're prostitutes. That's all they are. Susan Stone, who is she?
Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone, sorry. How much I know. Sharon Stone. What is this? Prostitution on screen. That's all it is. Judy, what are we? We'll elevate these people to be the greatest people in the world. Madonna is like the greatest screen star. Who is she? God help us all. These are the role models for our youth. What are we teaching our kids? Linus, what are we teaching our kids? These are the people you give Oscars to? She's in the bathtub. Barbara Streisand in the bathtub with someone singing a song. These are the people we're giving Oscars to? These are role models for our kids. And people wonder, why is society breaking down around? Why are there so many rapes around us? Why are there so many robberies, violent crime? Because we showed this guy with who's the guy? Who's the big tough
Rambo.
guy? Rambo 1, Rambo 2.
Sylvester Stallone.
These are the Oscars. These are the guys. Instead of giving a guy who, there are medals which are given every time, right? To people who do good deeds. Like there's firemen's medals for people who help the firemen. There's police medals. We should have a national televised program on these people. Talk about their lives. They should be in the newspapers. We should have a newspaper column, not about people in the news. People magazine, right? There should be these people, not the idiots on the TV and on TV on the. What do they do for human beings? Garbage they're producing. Unfortunately, Jews are involved in this. Unfortunately, we have a lot to answer for. Unfortunately, Woody Allen and company. Okay. So we have to have self-control. Let's just finish off. We're getting very late. We're going to extra time now. Sorry, I don't have enough self-control to stop them. Okay.
You're feeding your own purpose.
Specific self-control is the kind which Torah and reason indicate for the welfare of our souls. God's purpose of the creation of the human species, according to traditional Jewish belief, is to discipline the soul and to test it in this world, so that it might be purified and attain the character of holiness. As the prophet Zechariah says, "If you will walk in my ways and keep my charge, I will give you free access among those that stand by me," which is a promise of eternal life. If you keep my ways and keep my charge, you can walk wherever you want by the people who stand next to me. Someone keeps phoning me and leaves beautiful music on my machine. God instituted in man enjoyment for exercising basic functions, which urges us to do certain things. Okay, but we have to know how to control that enjoyment. All the basic functions, we're so fortunate. God gave us basic functions. Can you imagine if those basic functions would give us pain? Sometimes they do. Sometimes if a person's sick, eating gives a person pain. Sleeping can cause a person pain. Going to the bathroom causes a person pain. Imagine if a person has pleasure from these basic functions. Do you know how much we have to appreciate God? Because God gave us all these basic functions. He gave us pleasure in them. Imagine what life would be if we would have pain through these basic functions. The most basic functions. And we have pleasure. Eating. What a pleasure. It's a basic function. Can you imagine if we had pain in that eating? Sleeping. What a pleasure. Even going to the bathroom is a pleasure for most people. We're very fortunate that God gave us all these things. But He gave us all these things. He says, don't usurp it. He gave it to you. It's a pleasure. Don't misuse it. You should be thankful. Use it in the right way. And that's what Judaism is all about, is using these things in life with the discipline, with the control, to elevate ourselves, to keep ourselves away from our basic instincts, and to elevate ourselves. Good night. Any questions?